Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Intelligence Racing League, where the action is really hotting up now. Just 5 rounds left in the championship, included tonight, and just 1 point between the top 2 in the championship. Just as leading Daniel, who will be on the top of the end of this evening, around the Temple of Speed, the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, round 15 of the championship, the Italian Grand Prix. Looking like a very overcast qualifying session as well, and that is always a possibility around this track. Should be a fast race, should be an exciting race. Who will end up taking the victory? Last time out in the Austrian Grand Prix last weekend, we all thought when we left the stream that Connor had secured a second win in 3 races, which would have really bumped him up in the championship, but there was a sting in a tail, a 10-second penalty to Connor for a pit lane infringement. Means that fantastic alternate strategy that he pulled off. Unfortunately for him, he ended up finishing in 3rd place, promoting Menno de Beva to 2nd, and Mr. Pop XL getting his first victory of the season. That means he's now actually 3rd in the championship. We'll run through the top 5 drivers. You've got Just As 127, Daniel 126, the man you're seeing on screen at the moment, pole sitter last time out, Mr. Pop XL, he is on 75 points. And then the Williams of Connor and Menno tied on 68 points at the moment. So still definitely a chance for all those drivers to win the championship. But you'd expect it to be one of the top 2 who ends up taking the victory, barring some strange goings on. And there's always a possibility that something could happen, especially around a circuit like this. A lot of fast straights, the fastest circuit on the Formula 1 calendar. Very tricky braking zones as well. Very easy to pick up that odd penalty and really put yourself into trouble. But who will be able to master the circuit the best this afternoon? We'll see what Daniel could do. Had a bit of a bad race last time out for him. Was involved in an incident on the first lap. Managed to recover to 5th, but did end up losing the championship lead to Just As, who had his own spin, but recovered to 4th. So let's see what Daniel can do as he slings it out to Parabolica. DRS open across the finish line, reaching 213 miles per hour, 214 miles per hour in the end there. So around 340 kilometers per for a braking zone for the Rettifilio chicane. Coming out now, heading towards Curva Grande, flat out through easy. In a modern Formula 1 car, it wouldn't surprise me now if even with DRS they'd be able to go pretty much flat through there. And then heavy braking again at the 100 metre board for the Ruggier chicane. And it is very easy to invalidate your lap, as you have just seen there from Daniel. Will he carry on though as he comes through the first Lesmo? They are on about reprofiling these Lesmos to make them even faster like they used to be in the 80s. DRS open once again as you now head towards the Ascari chicane, coming up below the fearsome banking last used tragically in 1961 after an accident with Wolfgang van Trips, killing multiple spectators through the Ascari chicane, and he decides to back off in the end, avoiding that curve on the left hand side. So let's see what Menno can do. Just picking up a slipstream from Daniel, and you can't really blame him for wanting to do that. Heading now towards Parabolica, taking early apex. You want to get on the throttle as soon as possible on the exit of this corner to floor it towards the finish line, hugging the right hand side of the track. And for Menno, it is a 118.351, the first run from him in this session. Can Bullet Boy go better than that? No, he cannot. And have we seen any slipstream action from the Racing Points? It looks like a bit of a gap. Between Just As and Mr. Pop, so I'm not sure they've really gone for that slipstream at the moment. Mr. Pop was pole last time out, goes into 2nd for now. What can the championship leader do? He goes into 3rd at this moment, just behind his teammate and Racing Point with the best round any team has had this season. Last time around, 37 points in Austria. They now have a 60-point lead over Alfa Romeo, and we do follow the same scoring system as in real Formula 1. So 44 available for a team over a race weekend. Very handy to have that 60-point lead. And then you've got Williams further 8 points back. Watch them out, because they are looking very consistent indeed at the moment. And we are hearing rumours it is going to be a wet race, and that could make it very tricky indeed, because said you don't want to be running a lot of downforce around this circuit. In a wet race, you're just going to have to add a bit more. You still don't want to be going for a full wet setup and completely just chucking on a barn door on the back of your car because you'll be a sitting duck down the straight, but that could definitely spice things up ever so slightly. Let's see what Thomas can do. Reserving in the Red Bull tonight. He has made an appearance earlier on this season. Last time out, actually, in Austria was his first appearance, and he failed to finish there. He's just ran wide for a Scarvi and has invalidated his lap, and it was a very decent first performance from both of the Mercedes drivers last time out. JF Rocher and Harry, 7th and 8th in the end. It did look at one point, though, as there would be a slight possibility of getting the pair of them on the podium, and at the moment, Harry not yet to set a time, and it doesn't look like JF is going to either. It looks like he's just going to head into the pit. So only 5 drivers setting a time at the moment, as we just see what Chapelele can do. Menno de Beva the fastest by a 10th of a second from Mr. Pop. Championship leader just as in 3rd, and number 2 Hassers 4th and 5th. We'll see what Chapelele can do. A man who has shown glimpses of absolutely fantastic race. Arguably should have won that Silverstone race round 2 if it wasn't for the restart under the safety car. Singapore, he did take the victory. Since then, though, only managed to finish in the points twice and invalidated there. In fact, he retired very early on last time out in Austria after qualifying at the back of the grid in what was a torrential rain qualifying session, and I'm sure the real Formula 1 drivers can sympathise with that after the weather today. But Chapelele invalidating there. He's 6th in the championship at the moment on 51 points. Probably, well, in fact, almost certainly too far back to really have a say. He'd need an absolutely fantastic run and some bad luck. Some exceptionally bad luck for Justas, and Daniel is now Knuckle Beasy in the Renault. These guys usually towards the back of the field. He has set a time though at the moment when a lot of drivers have failed to do so far. 119.759 for the Renault driver. Daniel's had the edge in qualifying pace on a lot of people so far this season. He's looked very good in qualifying, and if he keeps it clean, he's done much better this time around. He invalidated, of course, with the Rogier chicane. He's going to get an absolutely beautiful slipstream off Baraka there, who sort of stayed on the racing line. Not ideal whatsoever. So Daniel, in the end, having to move around, that might have just cost him a few hundredths. And with how close we've seen some qualifying sessions this year, that could well be enough to make the difference here. But Daniel heads towards the line in the Alfa Romeo. An absolutely storming lap from him. 118.065, backing up what I was saying in qualifying. He has looked pretty much unbeatable this season. See what some of the other drivers can do. We'll go on board with URC_rotation. Been fairly consistent this season. Picked up some more points last time out with a 10th place in Austria. He'll be hoping for a bit better today. What can he do now as he heads towards the line? He goes into 7th place. His teammate, really being the form driver, could well have 3 wins this season in 4 races. Only the one, but don't count him out for a championship fight at the moment. Still in 4th place, and Connor goes into 2nd, just ahead of Menno de Beva at the moment. Still quite a gap though to Daniel. A 1/4 of a second at this moment in time is the gap between those drivers. Harry now heading towards the Parabolica. His first race last time out yielded an 8th position. Didn't look to have the pace of his teammate, but put in a solid job. You've got to say, just penalties costing him in the end, and a few different strategies and punctures catching various people out as Harry now comes across the line. He goes into 8th place. Babacar Gap coming towards the finish to end his lap. Where can he go in the Alpha Tauri? 9.5 minutes to go, so we're nearly at the halfway point. Babacar Gap goes into 8th, and Menno jumps his way up into 2nd place. Very good job from the McLaren driver, who's just sneaking his way up at the moment. Highest person in the championship yet to win a race. Got another good podium last time out. He's had a podium as well in Singapore, so that's 2 podiums since the season reboot before the Canadian Grand Prix. Another one of those drivers who's probably going to need something to happen to the top 2 to have any realistic chance of winning the championship. But he's currently on 68 points, 59 off the top. It's unlikely, is still a possibility, and I'm sure he'll be giving it his all towards the end. Thomas now about to finish his first flying lap. Where can he go in the Red Bull? Very good lap indeed. Puts himself up into 3rd place. JF Rocher on the mediums. Unsurprisingly ditching those to go into the pits, just as also heading into the pits. So qualifying started to be a bit of an Achilles heel you've got to say, over the last few races for the championship leader. He's been starting in the midfield quite often. That cost him in America, where he either made a mistake or was involved in an incident. We didn't quite get to see it. Could well be costing him today as well. Down in 6th from behind his teammate, Mr. Pop, who is starting to show a bit more form that we saw in the first part of the season before it got rebooted. He tended to struggle. He didn't score points until Mexico, where he finished in 9th position, but a podium in Hungary and a win last time out has booked him up into 3rd in the championship. And again, a dark horse if we start seeing mistakes from Daniel and Justas, who will have been hoping for a nice straightforward race. If we get those wet weather conditions though, I think any chances of a nice straightforward race go completely out of the window. We'll see what Chapelele can do. He's invalidated his lap time. This is a bit of a pattern we see with Chapelele, if we're being brutally honest. Does seem to struggle a bit in some of the qualifying sessions, and you can see only him and Rocha yet to set a lap time, so he'll be another driver that hopes he can get it right next time around. Most of the drivers in the pits, a few drivers heading on an out lap, and one of those is our pole sitter Daniel, 1:18.065 for 7 minutes 10 seconds remaining. Warming up his tyres, getting himself a bit of free air. The most important thing you need to have warmed up around here is the brakes, especially lap 1, turn 1 in the race. It's a long run towards the Rettifilio. Quite often you see front wings getting damaged. Probably one of the hardest braking zones on the calendar in terms of speed differential from the start of the braking zone to the end. It's a very tight chicane indeed. I mean, you can just see here again, 214 miles per hour as you head to the braking zone, down to about 50 by the time you get to the apex of turn 1. So let's see if this is an improvement then from Daniel in the first sector. Can he get himself into the 117s? If it had been a dry race, we probably would have seen that. The compromise, though, needing to be made with the setup. He's not improving at the moment. Bullet Boy, though, he's finding a bit of time. Him and Law, 7th and 8th. Bullet Boy, one of the reserve drivers. He's reserving in for Matti Santo at the moment. Unfortunately for him, he's suffered from connection issues, but he's definitely a fast driver, but hasn't scored any points this season, so he'll be hoping that everything stays together for him tonight. But he's taken way too much curb at Ascari, and that is his lap invalidated. Daniel's improving once again. This could well be a 1:17. He did get a bit of a slipstream last time around on his flying lap. He's not going to have that same luxury really as much as the moment. Menno does just get out of the way here, so we'll see what Daniel can do in the Alfa Romeo. Can this be the first man into the 1:17s, which will almost certainly secure pole? And look at that, a 1:17.837, 4/10 faster than the rest of the field. It is going to be a big job for anyone, I think, to stop him taking pole position this afternoon. Knuckle Beasy in 12th at the moment. Only his teammate behind him who set a lap, and he stays in that 12th position. Rotation, he's invalidated his lap. We've got the racing point just as finding a bit more time at the moment. 3/10 of a second. This could get him onto the front row of the grid. He'll still be a long way behind Daniel, so we'll see how it is towards the finish line. He's good enough in the end there for second place. He'll be happy with that. His teammate has invalidated, so we won't be seeing any improvements from him. Connor blasted his way towards the finish line. This could challenge for pole. 1:17.994 puts himself into second place. Probably the 3 fastest drivers at the moment. Top 3 in this session with 4.5 minutes remaining. Can anyone challenge them? Could we see Menno maybe sneak his way up on his lap at the moment? He is improving, to be fair to him, nearly a quarter of a second up, so this could get him back onto the front row of the grid. Like I said, he does seem to have found a bit more form of late. He's kept it nice and clean through the parabolica, heading now towards the finish line. Is this another driver in the 1:17s? It is indeed, 1,000th of a second faster than Connor. And that is the difference at the moment, with 4 minutes remaining between being on the front row and starting in third place. Killer Brent, he's on an in-lap 1:20.1, a long way off the pace at the moment. Does not seem to be enjoying this whatsoever. Neither does Chapelele, because that is another invalidated lap time from the Red Bull driver. So he needs to get it together, otherwise he'll be starting from the back, and got himself in an incident last time starting from the back. And that led to his retirement. Hopefully, for his sake at least, he'll be starting a bit higher up. And it does look as though he is going for another lap, as most of the others come into the pits. And you see the yellow flags because everyone's cruising into the pits. And it is a very difficult pit entry, not long between the start of the pit lane entry and when you've got to slam on the brakes to get to your pit lane speed limit points. Apologies for that, completely forgot what the word for limiter was there. So yeah, a very difficult entry, and you could easily see the odd 5-second penalty being picked up, which in wet conditions is very likely we're going to see some safety cars as well. Could make a huge difference. Chapalele though flying through sector 1 at the moment. Just needs to maybe, big shunt into the barriers there for Chapalele. Front wing broken. Bit too wide through the Rogier chicane. 15th place at the moment. He'll be able to get back to the pits. Oh, he's retired from the session. So, we know where Chapalele will be starting. He will be starting stone dead last. And, yeah, probably did actually run out of time to really get back to the pits to fix that front wing. Not ideal whatsoever for the Red Bull driver. He'll be starting in last place, and the fresh choice of tyre advantage, if it's a full wet race, won't make a difference because everyone will get themselves some fresh tyres as rotation. Now, I think I just saw a spinner there. Was that Thomas on an out? No, it was Chapalele, I think, just heading back to the pits. His AI car seemed to have actually spun it there, which is very strange indeed. So we'll go back to rotation. 12th place at the moment for him. How's he doing through sector 1? Big improvement on his personal best. 4/10 of a second. I doubt he'll keep that up for the rest of the lap, because if he did, he'd be challenging Daniel. But even finding another 10th or 2 would be good enough to get him comfortably into that top 10, around maybe where Rocher and Mr. Pop are at the moment. Nice and clean through Lesbo, still leaving a bit spare, not really using all the curb at the moment, because we've seen more from Chapalele how easy it is to get it wrong if you do that. And look at that, all of a sudden rotation. He's lost that 4/10 of a second already, and he's now invalidated his lap time. Yeah, that could well be qualifying over for him. Killer Brent is retired from the session, so we won't be seeing any improvements from him. Rotation just saving his ERS, I think, ready for one final run. And Thomas is on his final run at the moment. So will the Red Bull left in this session. What can he do for the Milton Keynes squad as a reserve driver? 6th place, not too far behind Harry. Less than a 10th of a second, less than a 10th of a second ahead of Rocher as well. That's what we've come to expect from this league and so many others on the PS4. Such close racing all season long. Hopefully it carries on that way here for the final 4 races. Barcelona, Sochi, Abu Dhabi and Interlagos rounding out the season, as Thomas just invalidates his lap time, and that will be game over, I imagine, for him. He might have enough fuel to start another lap. Whether he'll have enough to finish it is a completely different story, and it does look as though he's definitely still pushing, so maybe, just maybe, we're going to see the Red Bull go for another lap. Yes, we are, so he's definitely going to try and improve, because that time would have been good enough. In the end, he's just slowed down across the finish line, so I think he was just trying to prove what he could do there, because that lap would have been good enough for 4th position, was Mr. Pop. 8th, only the best he could do. He's made a few mistakes on this lap. Is Daniel improving again? Checkered flag comes out. He slows it down. He is on pole for now. Doesn't have to worry about too much. Nuffle Beezy's made a big mistake coming out of the Rogier chicane. All the drivers pushing extremely hard at the moment and being caught out. Still lots of drivers on track. It's just as it's showing Mr. Pop coming around the final corner. He'll be heading towards the pits. Bullet Boy's had a big shunt. I'm going to take a punt at that being a big shunt coming out of Ascari. It is very easily done. I imagine he's just hit that curve on the inside and spun it towards the barrier, and there we go. There's the car with big damage. Law then, his teammate in 9th place at the moment, just getting that bit of a slipstream ever so slightly from Rocher there, taking full advantage of that. This could be a very good lap from the Haas driver to maybe, just maybe, push himself into the front 4 rows of the grid. Not the best run through Parabolica. What's it going to be for the Haas? Stays in 9th for now. What can Just As do? He's invalidated his time. That would have been good enough for an improvement in the end. Connor around the final corner. Can he knock Menno off the front row with the grid at the death? He can do more than that. It's pole position for the Williams driver. A 1:17.789. Absolutely fantastic job from him. And Barakakap, he'd invalidated his lap, so he'll be staying in 11th. Not like last week's disaster in qualifying, affecting. He really did struggle in Austria in the wet. He won the race on track in the dry, but penalties cost him in the end, and he's got pole position here tonight. CPI_Connor in the Williams is your pole sitter for round 15. These are the rest of the results then. Daniel is second, Harry third, Menno in fourth, extremely close between the front two rows of the grid, just as championship leader starting from fifth. Thomas, his fellow Lithuanian, alongside in sixth. Rocher, Mr. Pop, Law, and the Bullet Boy rounding out the top 10. Barakakap is 11th. Rotation, then the two Reynolds, 13th and 14th. We did not see a time at all during that session from Shapalele. Will he have a better race than last time out? Will the rain affect these drivers? How much will it rain? So many unknowns, of course, going into this race. And it looks to me, if I had to make a prediction, it looks to me like intermediate conditions. Looks to me like intermediate conditions. And this is something we didn't really talk about. We mentioned the drivers are going to compromise on setup. How much have different drivers compromised on setups? Are some of those further up the grid? Perhaps on a bit of a drier setup? So, for example, Daniel, Menno and Connor. Are they on a dry setup? Or is that just pure pace? We'll have to wait and see. And are some of those further down going for a more aggressively wet setup, knowing that they'd struggle in qualifying, but knowing that they'd have the grip in this race? This is going to be very interesting indeed. This is going to be very interesting indeed. So we'll have to see. Apparently there's a few drivers involved in some blocking during qualifying, so we may well see some penalties, as we are just waiting for everyone now to pick their strategies. I can't really pick the setups, obviously. They are fixed apart from changing differential and front wing settings. And no, well, actually there is a surprise. Everyone, apart from Killer Brent, on the intermediate. Now this is either a smart move from the Renault driver in 14th, or he'll have cooked those tyres by the time he's got round the second Lesmo, and very possibly having spun off. We'd expect, if it stays at this intensity, a straightforward one-stop strategy. The wet tyres and the intermediates don't wear as much as the dry, so it will be a fairly straightforward one-stop strategy. And only Killer Brent going on the wet tyres as Rotation and Knucklebeezy get themselves removed from the formation lap, so they're going to be starting with very cold tyres indeed. And you can see how much weaving they're having to do. Connor nearly going off on his formation lap. They are really having to fight hard to get some temperature into these Pirelli intermediate tyres at the moment. The green stripes, will we see the dries make an appearance at any point in this race? And if so, when and what tyres will the drivers have to go on to? Will they be able to, maybe if it stops raining early on, go on to the mediums? If it's a bit later, will they try and stretch the softs out? Will it stop raining whatsoever? At the moment, you'd have to say it does look as though this is here to stay. Will we have a full wet race? And who is going to take the victory then? Here, a reminder, just as is your championship leader, the man you're on board with, Daniel, 1 point behind the Lithuanian in the racing point at the moment. Daniel in the Alfa Romeo. Then Mr. Pop, third. Further 51 points behind Daniel, with Connor and Menno de Bever currently 59 points off the lead of the championship. Four of the top 5 in the championship, in the top 5 of the grid, and Mr. Pop down in 8th. He's currently third, needs a good result in this race to keep his slim hopes of claiming the Drivers' Championship and claiming that £20 prize alive, of course. That's a bit of extra incentive for these drivers as we are getting ready now for the start of this race. Connor in the Williams from pole position has driven superbly since joining the league just a few races ago. If we go for his results, then the Hungary 5th place in the end, but only after post-race penalties. First in Japan, second in America, third in Austria after post-race penalties. He could well have won 3 out of his first 4 races, but he's got a chance here to make it a second win of the season and become one of the few drivers. In fact, I think only Just As so far has won multiple races. We've had 6 different winners in the last 6 races. Will we get a 7th tonight? We will, if Harry or Menno win from the second row of the grid, as we wait then for the lights to come on here. We've got 5 lights here at Monza, and we are underway. A very short hold there for all the drivers. It seems to have been a fairly decent start there already. Someone on the grass, a good start though by Connor, just as squeezing his way through the middle of the field as Harry drops down the order. But it's Connor leading, Daniel in second, Menno and Justas going side by side around the chicane here. Who's going to get the better traction on the exit? And McLaren's got the inside for Curva Grande. Justas is going to go all the way around the outside. Connor though with a clear lead at the moment from Daniel. Menno just hangs on to third place, and it is Justas, Rocher, Thomas, Bullet Boy, Mr. Pop, Harry with an absolutely nightmare of a start in these early stages, down 5 places. Mr. Pop in ninth. There's some front wing damage there. Harry facing the wrong way, and he has got big front wing damage. Don't know if anyone else did pick up any damage in that, but he is in 12th. Nuffle Beasy is 14th at the moment. Rotation in 13th, and Nuffle down the inside here. That's just going to force the Williams onto the grass, and I think there's a bit of argy-bargy between them after the formation lap. I don't think Rotation was too happy. He'll be even less happy now. Killer Brent in 11th on those wet tyres. We'll have to wait and see how he does. Chapalela with a fantastic start, up to 10th, but back at the front of the field already the top 4, building a gap 1.5 seconds ahead of Thomas at the moment. But Connor leading on lap 1. Rotation dropping further back. I don't know if he's got any front wing damage or he's struggling with something, because Harry's got big front wing damage. You wouldn't expect him to have the pace, but there we go. Connor's still leading the race. Mr. Pop trying to get ahead of Barakacap here, and he has done so. So Mr. Pop has managed to get ahead of Barakacap. In fact, no, it was JF Russia we got ahead of, because he's into the pits. Is this a front wing change? Both Mercedes going to need new front wings. Harry's decided to carry out on circuit rather than being held by his teammate. That's a interesting strategy indeed, because I think he's probably going to lose more time with that broken front wing. But JF Russia coming out in last place, and his teammate just ahead of him. Not an ideal start whatsoever. Connor keeping it nice and clean at the moment. Daniel and Menno all over the back of him. Justas got a superb launch, just lost it a bit in the second phase of the start, and that's really ended things for him. He wasn't able to get ahead of Menno, and now he seems to have dropped further back ever so slightly. Then a big gap back to Thomas. You can see in the background sliding his way through the second Lesbo. Then Bullet Boy, Mr. Pop, Barakacap, Chapalele and Killer Brent on those wet tyres. Have to wait and see how he's doing, because I imagine he's just struggling a bit, because it doesn't look like intermediates are too bad at the moment. Nuffle Beasy is going to try round the outside into Ascari. This is brave in the dry, never mind in the wet, and he does have to slot in behind the hat of VRT Law at the moment. Harry picks himself up a penalty, then bum drafting their way down the straight here. They're not even fighting for points at the moment. Could well be at the end of the race. You wouldn't be surprised to see the odd retirement or two. Nufflebeezy stays in 12th, and look how much Killer Brent struggling on those wet tyres. Surely he's going to have to come into the pit soon and put a set of the intermediates on, as Justas has got a fantastic run on Menno de Bever round the outside. He's going to try into turn 1. This would be superb if he could hold it off. Can he get the traction on the exit? No, Menno getting a better exit again this time around. You get the feeling Justas thinks as though he's being held up. In fact, I think Menno must have made a mistake on that lap there, because he's dropped a long way behind Daniel, and now all of a sudden Thomas, Bullet Boy and Mr. Pop are right on the back of these drivers. Chapalele in 9th place, a much better first lap than last time out after starting from the back of the grid. We'll have to see what he can do. And Law trying to get past Brent here. Brent holding on. That's just going to end in a collision. He tried his best to hold on, but that was not ideal whatsoever, and he now drops to 14th. Surely won't be staying on these wet tyres for too long, because they are just overheating, and he has got no grip at all. Connor still leading the race though, lap 4. Well, lap 3 I should say at the moment, coming on to lap 4 next time around. Hitting the curb a bit more than, just about to say hitting the curb a bit more than I'd like to in these conditions. He's got a big twitch, he's not leading anymore, because Daniel takes the lead in this race. Could have been a much worse consequences from that mistake there from Connor. He holds on to second place for now though, but he's going to have Menno all over the back of him, who's just got away from Justas ever so slightly. So the first big mistake from one of the leaders, and it is Connor having a big moment, and Harry with that broken front wing flying his way up the grid. I'm still surprised he hasn't come into the pits yet, but he doesn't seem to be struggling too much at the moment. Him and Law going side by side here on the run down towards the first chicane. Who's going to have the straight line speed? And that missing bit of downforce probably means a missing bit of drag for Harry. He stays in 12th for now. Law trying to get around the outside. Not this time, I'm afraid, for him. But Daniel now in the lead. What can he do? Can he take advantage of that, as he's probably earned himself at least one penalty there? Fastest lap of the race, JF Rocher at the moment on a 1 minute 30. So they're about 7 or 8 seconds. Oh, as Daniel now. He finds his way onto a curb. In fact, they're not even 7. They're probably about 6 or 7 seconds, I should say, off where you'd expect them to be. His own rotation has been around. He now drops back behind Killer Brent as Just As wakes his way past Menno de Bever. Championship leader up into 3rd. If things stay as they are, Daniel would take the championship lead by 9 points going into Spain. Still very early days, but he'll be wanting to stay in contact. He's now 2 seconds behind Daniel, so having an absolutely fantastic run. 1.1 seconds his lead at the moment. And Thomas, he's had that bad first lap where he dropped back ever so slightly, but all these guys have recovered, and now Connor's not really getting away from them. Daniel most certainly is at the front of the wet field, but Connor perhaps not, as here we go, Thomas in the slipstream of Menno, of course in the slipstream of Just As. No DRS at the moment, and even if it stopped raining now, you wouldn't expect to see any DRS for at least 5 laps. You do wonder, if we are expected to see the rain stop in this race, how long will the drivers go on for? How long will they be able to brave it on these intermediate tyres, especially once they start wearing? That could cause a few problems, as Killer Brent here side by side with Harry. Rotation not too far behind. I mean, he's on the wet tyres, he's not doing terribly. They just definitely don't look to have the pace of those on the intermediates. I'd say he's probably losing a couple of seconds a lap here, so could have been a much better race. However, if he feels confident, why not go for this? But you can see JF only 10 seconds off the back of this battle, despite having that pit stop for a front wing change on lap 1. Daniel just sweeping away at the front of the field. You can see that doesn't look too much spray at that point of the track. Definitely still raining, so no debate that these tyres are the right ones, but he's flying his way forward, gaining about half a second on this lap. He's really enjoying himself at the moment, and Connor just trying everything to stay in touch. And to be fair, he's pulling away from Just As, who is pulling away from Menno, who is pulling away from Thomas. So the gaps are sort of growing ever so slightly at the moment. Will we see any moves? There's another yellow flag, and that is rotation in the gravel at Ascavi and Killer Brent as well. So I'm guessing there's been some sort of collision between those two. Is there any damage on either of their cars? Couldn't see any on rotations. And this camera angle, yeah, Killer Brent doesn't seem to have any as well. And Harry, he was around about there, so I'm not sure whether he would have any damage. And oh, rotations round again. Now he's got damage. Now it's a virtual safety car. Virtual safety car deployed. Broken front wing for rotation, who's just having a bit of a horror show of a start to this race. But he's still carrying on at the moment. And hopefully he does so, because you never know. There could well be some more accidents here. But a virtual safety car. Daniel now with a 3.2 second lead. Connor getting a bit wild, even under the virtual safety car at the moment. Daniel does seem to be slowing down, so I wonder if he's over the delta. And yeah, rotation does retire from the session, so we are down to 14 runners here. Rotation, after that incident with Killer Brent and then spinning into the wall at Ascavi, he has retired from the race. So Connor, the only Williams at the moment, as we go green again. And Just As has got an absolutely fantastic run. He's played the VSC beautifully in the Racing Point. What a smart decision there by Just As. He's up into second place, and Connor just getting ever so slightly mugged there. He's really struggling through Ascavi for traction, because now Menno's got a brilliant run on him. I just wonder if he can get close enough into Parabolica. And no, it does look as though he's a bit too far behind for now. But it's very opportunistic from Just As. The timing just working out for better for him. He was able to go full throttle earlier, and Connor just caught out completely by that. And the pole sitter now down to third place. Now we'll see if Just As can get away, like Daniel has done. Daniel nearly 3 seconds ahead at the moment, as Mr. Pop looks to be sending one down the inside on Bullet Boy. All front wheels locked. Just about nearly getting that position done. He's on the curb though. He's going to have no traction whatsoever. Thankfully for him, Babacar making a similar mistake, and Chapalele trying to work his way through as Harry finally comes into the pits. Changed out that front wing. Action all throughout the field. at the moment. Pretty much Daniel, the only one on his own, as Harry retires from the race. Shapalele all the way around the outside of Barakakap. That'd be a wonderful move if he could pull it off. In the end, not able to do so. Definitely looks as though he's got some good pace at this moment in time. Just feel he's being held up ever so slightly in this train. Dirty air, probably a bigger effect here than it is normally, because they'll all be running more downforce, so more downforce on your car, more reliant on having clean air going through the front and rear wings and all the different barge boards and elements on a Formula 1 car that produce that downforce. It's just disturbed when you're running this close to another car. Shapalele just riding the curve ever so slightly, which is very brave in the drive. We saw Bullet Boy get it wrong in the drive for Ascari. Even more braver in these wet conditions as, let's see what's happening here. Thomas on the back of Menno. 4th and 5th at the moment. Menno again very slidey at the moment. And is this going to give Thomas a chance to maybe get himself up into the top 4? There's the view from the back of McLaren, who knows he's going to have to go slightly defensive into turn 1 here. Which way is Thomas going to go? Can he go late enough on the brakes to get down the outside? No, he can't. Just a slight tap to Menno, who's hanging on to the back of Connor at about that 1 second gap. But to be fair, it's not like Justas is really escaping from Connor at the moment. 1 second gap between them and Daniel a further 3 seconds up the road. You've got to say, if Daniel keeps it clean in this race, he's looking very hard to beat at the moment, as another fastest lap from JF Russia, a 1:30.948, suggesting the track conditions aren't really improving too much on lap 8. There is our race leader then, Daniel. 3.1 seconds ahead of Justas, who finds himself 0.6 ahead of Connor, 0.9 ahead of Menno. When DRS gets, well, if DRS gets enabled, because we're still quite substantial raindrops falling at the moment, we're going to have a fantastic train here between Justas and Mr. Pop. Barakakap's just dropped off it ever so slightly, and Shapalele still not able to take advantage. Here's the view from 6th place man, hoping that he stays in the session so he can get his first points of the season. It is Bullet Boy reserving in the Haas, looking very close to the back of Thomas, but not close enough to do anything into Parabolica. It is very rare you see a move into Parabolica. It's all about getting the exit right. Tough in normal conditions, extremely tough in the wet here. Barakakap picks up a penalty as he tries to catch back up, and he looks safe from Shapalele at the moment. Bullet Boy trying to go round the outside of Thomas. He's got a much better exit through Parabolica. Thomas has the inside line for the first part of the Metafilio. Bullet Boy's going to have the inside line for the second part. Mr. Pop nearly losing a front wing getting involved in this. Bullet Boy's got the move done, and it looks like the Racing Point has as well. So Thomas, as Mr. Pop on the wetter part of the circuit there, just having to yield. I was about to say Thomas losing 2 places in pretty much the space of 1 corner there, but Mr. Pop on the wet line through Curva Grande had to hop over the chicane there to avoid getting any damage. I imagine he turns himself a warning. Thomas now down to 6 as Shapalele and Barakakap have come together. The Red Bull and the Alpha Tauri coming together. Alpha Tauri staying ahead, and now that Shapalele's got that front wing damage, he's going to have to come into the pits. Killer Brent gets a speeding penalty in the pit lane. And what is this going to be? It is going to be a... Now, I'm not sure that was intentional. It's fair to say. I was unsure whether wet tyres were the right choice. I'm 100% certain that slick, soft tyres are the wrong choice here. He's going to light it up on the way out of the pit lane here. We're going to ride on board for a bit here with Killer Brent, just to hear the level of struggle. And look at that, just straight on. He can't even get the car stopped at the braking zone. This, thankfully, ghosting's on, otherwise this could get very tricky for some of those lead cars. And one of them's coming through now. Daniel, 3 seconds ahead. Justas has pulled away ever so slightly. Shapalele retires from the session. Connor gets a penalty for exceeding track limits. So we're down to just 12 runners all of a sudden. It is all kicking off here. Killer Brent pretty much stopped at the side of the circuit. Let's carry on with him here. So Shapalele, another DNF for him, just does not seem to be going right at the moment. Let's have a look. Killer Brent really struggling at the moment through Curva Grande. Wheel spin in 6th gear. He's going far too fast to get it slowed down for this chicane. No, there we go. Having to take to the escape road. A very late decision to do so. He's going to be back into the pits for intermediate tyres. Any chance he had of picking up points pretty much over here. As Connor and Meadow Debever had a big coming together. And there is a full safety car. What on earth has happened there? That is quite a long way from the second Lesbo. What on earth has happened there? Full safety car. Will we see anyone coming to the pits to put intermediate tyres on and try to get to the end? It's a bit earlier than you normally would do. But that is strange. That was on a straight. Have they just not seen each other? Has there been a bit of wheel spin? Connor was ahead of Menno and didn't really look under threat. And here we go. We are going to see some pit stops. And they've both got themselves 5-second penalties. Completely missing the front wing on that McLaren. And Connor with quite big damage as well. This is really dropping them out of contention for the win in this race. So here we go. End of lap 10. We are seeing drivers coming to the pits. They should get the intermediates to the end from here. But it is going to be a challenge. And Killer Brent on the back of these guys on these soft tyres. Do you know what? He's not doing too bad. All credit to him. Given how bad the conditions are, I thought he'd be doing a lot worse here. But he's trying to hold on to it valiantly. And he's got back to the pits for another set of intermediates, I imagine. But Daniel now leads the race just as in second. Bullet Boy will be third. Thomas in fourth place. Mr. Pop fifth. Baraka is in sixth. Menno and Connor seventh and eighth after that incident. Nuffle Beasy now going for the wet tyres. Nuffle Beasy going for the wets. His teammate tried it earlier and looked to be struggling a bit more. So we'll have to see whether Nuffle will. Still raining quite heavily though, so that could become the right choice. As just as a Bullet Boy swapping round there. Hopefully that won't cause any safety car glitch. JF Rocher in 10th, Law in 11th, and Killer Brent a lap down on his first set of intermediate tyres, surprisingly, in this race after making 2 pit stops. He is 12th. So the safety car leading them round. They'll be trying to get the temperature in those tyres. Disadvantage they've got is if it gets any drier or any wetter, they won't really be used to what the conditions are like. And you can see Daniel weaving quite severely there at the moment. He's got his championship rival right behind him. And after that, after the race Connor and Menno have had, and Mr. Pop XL not really having a fantastic race, you've got to say, if it finished as it was now, it's almost certainly one of these two who will be winning going into the final 4 races of the season. Bullet Boy in third. A very good performance from him at the moment. Thomas looking for his first points as well in fourth. Mr. Pop maybe trying to get himself up onto another podium. Racing point with 2 drivers as opposed to Alfa Romeo, who only have 1 full-time driver at the moment. You've got to say it's going to be almost impossible for Alfa Romeo to overturn this 60-point margin. At the moment, Daniel's doing a good job on his own. Probably going to have to do a slightly better one at the moment, as another severe penalty between Menno and Connor. What on earth is happening between these 2 drivers? Connor's into the pits again. Is this going to be another front wing change? Is this... Oh, he's serving his penalty. That's very clever, but he's just earned himself another penalty. So Connor into the pits. He's going to drop down to 11th place. He'll be able to catch up to the back of the pack, of course. Surprised some of the others didn't think of doing that. Surprised we didn't see anyone else doing that, because that is a bit of a bug on this game. I mean, the game lets you do it. It's against the spirit of the regulations 100%, but the game does let you serve your penalties under safety cars for whatever reason. So Connor comes out in the end still with a 5-second penalty. Now Russia gets one for a collision with Law, so Law will have himself a penalty as well. And he's actually dropped back behind Killer Brent. Really struggling here under the safety car, and that is big front wing damage for the Haas, so he'll be coming into the pits this time around. Will the safety car be coming in at the end of this lap, and then will we be going back racing for the final 15 laps of this Italian Grand Prix? If you want to see the Division 2 action, that is live now as well. And of course you'll be able to check both the races out on the YouTube channel at the end of this race when they've done all the processing. And it looks like the safety car might well be staying out for another lap, which is probably great news for some of those who've got the penalties. They might be able to get rid of them. Does Menno want to lose track position though to get rid of his penalties at the moment in 7th place? I mean, Connor's on the back of the pack here. Let's just put the safety car lights out and let's go racing again. We want to see some action. still raining hard. I think this is until the end of the race, these intermediate conditions. Oh, there we go. That is very late. I said I expected a late... I thought we might get a late call. That is extremely late. They were halfway around Parabolica when the call has come that safety car is in this lap, all desperately trying to get some heat into their tyres. This is going to be a very tricky restart indeed here. Law, Brent coming into the pits. They nearly passed each other in the pit lane here. Now they go. Right, Daniel has bolted it just as has not had the best restart. Bullet Boy might get a bit of a run on here. Very messy restart, all caused by how late the call came for the safety car. As just as finds himself on the grass there, he's surely going to have to go straight on. He's managed to get around that corner, but Bullet Boy has got ahead of him. Menno battling with Barakakat, Rocher and Nufflebeezy in the background as well. Connor now recovering his way up. All sorts of shenanigans and contact at the moment, and that's a big slide from Connor. Just caught on the outside there, so unlucky. And he's left the session in frustration. He still had a very good chance of getting points in the end, so I don't really get the point of that. There we go. Connor has left the session. Law and Brent back out on circuit. They were getting very close together, and Connor just an unfortunate victim in all of that in the end. But Daniel in the lead. Bullet Boy now in second. We saw Daniel escape a bit earlier in the first few laps of the race. Will he be able to do the same here? How's Nufflebeezy doing on the wet tyres? Not too bad. Not too bad. This might be an idea for some of those that are struggling. Well, might have been an idea. They won't last until the end, I can't imagine, if they're overheated ever so slightly. If the intermediates are lasting, I imagine they're just getting a bit hot of these wet tyres. As just as now, all over the back of Bullet Boy, gets the move done. He is up, back into second place. And Daniel with another astounding first lap then. 1.5 seconds he leads as we head on to lap 14. Just as is in second. Bullet Boy back down to third, but again all over the back of the racing point. Now he's going to have to go the long way round the outside into the Rettifilio. Last time he didn't really give Just As a lot of room. Just As slightly more fairer this time around. He stays in second. Bullet Boy having to settle for third place for now, and it all seems to have calmed down in the midfield. Mr. Pop trying to stay on the back of Thomas. Thomas in fourth place. Could well get himself a podium here. We're going to see someone new on the podium, it looks like, with Bullet Boy and Thomas, and Barakakat not too far back. Can Menno recover? He has that 5-second penalty, of course, that he will get added on to his time at the end of the race. I can't imagine anyone else coming into the pits at this moment in time. Imagine everyone will be trying to stay out on track unless they do pick up some damage at any point during this race. As Mr. Pop just... I don't know whether he was going for a move there on Thomas. He just pulled out of the slipstream ever so slightly, just pulling out of the spray to get a bit of clearness to his visor. Menno all over the back of Barakakat for 6th and 7th. Looks as though he's being held up in a similar way to what Chapalela was earlier, and that did end up leading to a bit of contact. And Chapalela's retirement, we're pretty much down to 11 cars here at the moment, because Connor has retired. Well, he's left the session, so he'll be getting no points whatsoever from this race. Oh, we've got a yellow flag there, and that is Nufflebeezy. Round he goes on the wet tyres. And the thing is, these Renaults, they keep going. One of them's picking up some points. If they don't retire, one of them's picking up some points. If one of them retires, well, if someone else retires, they're both picking up some points. So it's definitely worth sticking out there as JF just hanging back. He said he really enjoyed this track in the wet. The damage early on has really nullified his race, because he did seem to have the pace up until that last lap. He did have the fastest lap, but it is now Daniel on a 1:30.442. JF Rocher wasn't too far off that. On much heavier fuel load, on a bit more worn tyres, so that's how good he was doing. Connor goes up into second, but he's an AI car, so he'll be passed by Law soon, and I imagine Nuffle will be able to get him back, so there will not be any points whatsoever for Connor, even if he does stay in this 10th position. As VRT Law now picks up a penalty. Daniel still streaking away then on lap 15. 2 seconds he now leads. And oh, safety car. Nufflebeezy, I think, has binned it straight out of the pits. I think he's lost it coming out of the pit lane here. Saying we can't go on board with the safety car to see that incident, but now will Menno come into the pits to serve that 5-second penalty? Because he'd only lose one place on track to JF Rocher, and then he's back on the same lap as everyone. So Will we see him serve the penalty? This is why you should stay in the session, Connor, because now your car is in 10th place. You're not driving it, though. And you're just going to lose chunks and chunks of time. And we are seeing some pit stop. Well, whoa, what on earth's happened there in the pit lane? Has Mr. Pop gone into... Well, has Just As gone into the back of Bullet Boy in the pit? So there's been some weird situation there. I didn't quite catch it, but very nearly a crash in the pit lane. So here we go. Daniel, Bullet Boy on full wet tyres. Daniel, Just As, Baraka from Washer, all coming into the pit. Menno staying out, even though he was the only one I thought was definitely coming into the pit. So shows what I know. Thomas now leads. Mr. Pop in second. Menno in third. Daniel in fourth on intermediates. That will definitely make it to the end. As well Just As. Bullet Boy in sixth place. The first really are the front runners to go for that strategy. This could be very interesting indeed. This could be very interesting indeed to see what Bullet Boy can do on those wet tyres. Baraka is 7th. JF Washer in 8th. And then you've got Law, Connor's AI car, and Killer Brent, who is a lap down, but could still find himself getting some points in this race with the rate of attrition we've had. We've had 4 full retirements and Connor quitting the session, so only 10 participants still in this race. And we've got a new leader, Thomas, Mr. Pop and Menno de Bever, all deciding to stay out. Their tyres should make it to the end, especially now that there's another safety car. Whether they will make it to the end in a good condition, because obviously you'd expect those who have come into the pits to have much, much fresher tyres than these at the end. I would still expect these guys to have much fresher tyres. Daniel, Just As, Bullet Boy. The rain does still seem to be coming down pretty hard, and when both of the Renaults have been on the wet tyres, it didn't really seem to cost them as much. And if you're feeling more confident, it is worth a shot. So, safety car will be staying out at least one more lap. We know it went very late last time. I can't see it going as late this time, hopefully. Thomas in the lead, Mr. Pop in second, Menno in third, Daniel, who was pretty much led the entire way of this race after Connor made that mistake on lap 2, lap 2 or 3 it was when we saw Connor making that mistake. So Daniel in 4th, Just As in 5th, and there's been all sorts of things happening there. Bullet Boy getting ahead of Just As. Thank God that didn't cause a glitch, because this game is known for that under the safety car, to say the least. Baraka 7th, Washer in 8th, Law 9th, Connor's AI car in 10th, and Killer Brent the final car on the back of the queue. And to be fair, Law and Connor still got a way to go until they catch up to the end of the queue. I mean, Thomas is heading through the Rogier chicane now, just as Connor's AI car is exiting Parabolica. So hopefully he'll catch up by the end of this lap, and hopefully we'll be able to get racing with what will be 10 racing laps to go next time around. Thomas leading in the Red Bull. Mr. Pop, who took the win last time out, could well get himself another win here. We'll check what the penalty situation is. I don't believe any of these top drivers have any. Thomas has kept it clean. Mr. Pop actually does have a 3-second penalty. Menno, we know, has a 5-second penalty, which he has not served yet. Daniel, very clean indeed. Just As, also keeping it clean. Bullet Boy, absolutely perfect at the moment. We'll have to see how he can do. Baraka has a penalty. JF Rocher has a 5-second time penalty, which he will have served, I believe, in that pit stop, as will VRT Law. And Connor, he has served his penalty, but he's an AI car, and Killer Brent will have served his, but he's a lap down anyway, so I can't see him moving up whatsoever. The light's still on the safety car. The AI car is taking a long time to catch up to these guys, so we're going to be carrying on again. By the looks of things, we're going to be carrying on for another lap under the safety car, and this is I understand the frustration for Connor. He was having a decent race, accident before the safety car, getting another time penalty under the safety car, getting caught at the end. It's very frustrating to rage quit, but it's just his AI car now that is trundling around the circuit. We'd have gone racing last time if he'd have just pulled into the pits and retired, which I'm still not the biggest fan of, but it's preferable to what's happening here. So one more lap under the safety car. Hopefully we won't see any more contact or penalties, because we've come very close to that pretty much every lap we've had under the safety car. 10 remaining then. Bernd Mailander getting some nice run-outs today in real life and on the game at the moment. Thomas first, Mr. Pop second, Menno de Beva third, but watch out for Daniel. Much fresher tyres than everyone else. So he is going to be one to watch on the restart. Will he be able to get ahead of those front three whose tyres are older, so they may struggle with the warm-up? That is a tendency you see, tyres struggling to warm up more after a safety car period if they're older. But durability-wise, now that they've been under 2 safety car periods, should have absolutely no concerns about getting it to the end. And what will Bullet Boy do in 6th place on a set of the full wet tyres? This could be interesting. It's either going to be a move that wins him the race, or he's going to drop like a stone. And there's a much more conventional place for us to find out that the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. So we will hopefully get 9 more laps of racing, but safety cars can very often breed safety cars. And Thomas proving to be the Rainmeister tonight with the Schumacher helmet on. With 9 laps remaining, can he claim the victory? Mr. Pop behind him has a penalty, as does Menno. So expect to see Daniel and Justas working their way onto the podium. If they can keep it clean, can they work their way past these cars on track? Are we going to see another new victor? Are we going to see a 7th winner in 7 races here? Which Thomas or Menno would make it that, or even Bullet Boy? We're back racing once again, and again Bullet Boy has got a much better run than Justas. He just had to back off, and now Baraka all over the back of him. And look at Mr. Pop and Thomas here, down on the run towards the Rettifilio chicane. Daniel in the background on Menno de Beva as well. Who's going to blink first? And it's Thomas down the inside, holding on to that place. He's ran wide ever so slightly, sort of a concertina effect going on here. Has everyone managed to get through cleanly? And I think Daniel's got ahead of Menno, just as stays ahead of Bullet Boy. Washer ahead of Baraka, who's going to try and go all the way around the outside. There's a bit of bumping between the two of them. Don't shove anyone onto the grass in these conditions. And somehow that hasn't ended in an absolutely horrendous accident. And Rocher's going to have to miss the chicane completely there in the end. And oh, he gets a penalty for corner cutting, which I think is a bit harsh because that's the way you're meant to go. And he retires from the session. So we're down to just 9 runners at the moment. And this is why you shouldn't give up, because Killer Brent is going on a lap down. He's on for 2 points here at this moment. Mr. Bob in 2nd place then, in the racing point. Had a fantastic start to get onto the back of Thomas. Oh, he's hit the curve there ever so slightly, and that's going to give Daniel a great run on the run down to Parabolica, who was just a bit too far behind to really take advantage of this. Bullet Boy, you've got to say, looking at the times here, we're in the conditions where it is borderline between intermediate and wet. And if it starts raining heavier, Bullet Boy's in a fantastic position. If it stops raining, obviously he's finding himself in big trouble, but he's got a very good run out of the Parabolica here on the racing points, and could get the move done here on lap 20 into the Rettifilio chicane, under braking into turn 1 very late on the brakes. He just looks to have that bit extra grip, and just as earns a penalty as well. So that is Bullet Boy up into 5th place. Menno, despite having those older tyres, has got a great run out of that chicane. He's trying to have a go at Daniel here, who his newer tyres don't seem to have kicked in as much as they did earlier on, but Daniel is still in 3rd place, and as things stand would get promoted ahead of Mr. Bob into 2nd, and would take that championship lead ahead of the Spanish round next week. And there we just see Killer Brent going past the place where Rocher retired, so he's up into 10. I don't think Connor will get any points as he is an AI car, so 9th place at the moment for the Renault driver, and it will be the Renault team's first point in a while. For Killer Brent, it would be his first, well, driver then, it would have been their first point since the Hungarian Grand Prix, which had late safety cars, which had changeable conditions. So do seem to thrive in that, and they keep fighting towards the end, which is always what you want to see. They haven't got the pace, they've definitely got the fighting spirit though. Thomas still in the lead. He seems to be pulling away a bit from Mr. Pop, who, again, I was expecting Daniel to be a bit more threatening at the moment, if I'm being perfectly honest, and it looks more likely that Menno's going to pass him than we're going to see anything else. Bullet Boy on the wet tyres. He's hoping that it starts throwing it down now, and he could get a win in this Haas. It would be an absolutely superb victory for him. Hopefully, he just stays on circuit after the issues he's had with connections after starting in 10th. You can see there, Thomas up 5, Mr. Pop up 6, Daniel down 1 from his starting position. Connor, he's out of the race, but his AI car would have been down 8 places. Baraka up 4, Bullet Boy up 5 as well. So some good performances we're seeing at the moment. Thomas and Mr. Pop, looks like it was the right decision to stay out on these older intermediate tyres, because it's not like the fresher ones have got an advantage at the moment. As Bullet Boy, we go back on board to him then with 6.5 laps to go. Was closing on the back of Menno, just ran a bit wide through the second Lesbo, just getting caught out in the dirty air. And there we go once again. Once you wash out, you just have to lift off the throttle ever so slightly and try again. Ascavi, not an easy overtaking point at the best of times, even worse in this weather. And he does seem to be struggling ever so slightly, so I wonder if the rain has lightened. It doesn't look so. He hasn't looked as aggressive on this lap as he has previous laps. Lap 22 then, at the end of this one, and still Thomas is leading. Him and Mr. Pop are just going together. Daniel not able to stay with them at the moment, as it was the fastest lap of the race last time around. From Mr. Pop, a 1:29.7, so he'll get himself an extra bonus point for that. He's really shooting up, and you've got to say, you know he's got a penalty, but he's still going to have a slim chance of winning the championship. He's going to need a bit of a miracle, and I imagine he'll be going more in support of Just As, but anything can happen here. Anything can happen. We've seen big mistakes already throughout this race from various drivers getting caught on the curb. Connor and Mr. Pop being one of them. Who's to say Daniel and Just As won't do the same? So here we go, on board with the championship leader going into this race. He won't be leading it coming out of it. He heads through the first Lesbo on the back of Bullet Boy and Menno de Bever, but again, not close enough to really get a move done. And if he touches the curb like that, that's what I was saying. So easy to just spin the car around if you hit the curbs in that way. Thankfully, though, he is able to continue and not really under any pressure from Baraka or Law behind at the moment in time. They're just staying back in 7th and 8th. Will both pick up a fairly decent haul of points, as it looks to have closed down slightly at the lead of the race between Thomas and Mr. Pop. We know Pop set the fastest lap last time around, and we know he needs to get a move on because of his penalties if he wants to get onto the podium here. So 5 laps remaining. Red Bull leading racing points. Might see something similar in tomorrow's race, and that's not something I thought I'd be saying in the 2020 season. I doubt we'll be seeing an Alfa Romeo in 3rd place, despite the best efforts of Raikkonen and Giovinazzi, but it is Daniel in 3rd at the moment, looking to re-clinch that championship lead. Reminder, he's 1 point behind at the moment, and with Spain, Russia, Abu Dhabi and Brazil to be coming up, it looks like we could have another fantastic finale at Interlagos to end Season 2 of Division 1 here at INL. Still lots of racing laps to go, though, between then and now. And Daniel just hanging on in 3rd place at the moment. Looks as though Menno's dropped back ever so slightly, so I do wonder if the older tyres are struggling a bit more, or if Menno's just made a slight mistake. Oh, that's another mistake through the second Lesbo. Bullet Boy a bit wild as well, so not able to take advantage. They're not really close together. There's no obvious overtaking going to happen between now and the end of the race, unless we start seeing some mistakes, or we start seeing those older intermediates really drop off, which could bring Daniel back into it, which could bring Bullet Boy and Just As back into the fray. But it's been a very measured performance so far, as Killer Brent picks up a penalty. Will have had absolutely no bearing on his finishing time. It's looking like a very measured performance from the top 2 at the moment. Thomas, lap 24 then, still in the lead by half a second, still just far enough ahead as, oh, Bullet Boy's off into the wall, damaged his front wing. And what was looking like a fantastic race for the Haas driver, he's into the wall. He'll be dropping down to 8th place. Fresh set of, will it be wets or intermediates? It's going to be back onto the inters. I'm not sure whether that was because of the wet tyres overheating or just a slight driver error. But Bullet Boy will drop to 8th. So that's Justaz and Barakagap and Law all up a position. And you've got to say, Daniel does look as though he's starting to close up on these front two now. He's currently on for a second place with the penalty situation, but he'll be wanting a win out on track. And to do that, he's going to have to beat Mr. Pop and beat Thomas as well. Menno still in a fairly comfortable 4th place. It's been another great job for the McLaren driver, proving to be very consistent. Could well see him get a win this season. Definitely expected to get another podium as Connor's AI car takes another trip into the pits. And Barakagap has closed onto the back of Justaz. Could we see him take a top 5 finish? I don't believe he's had one this season. In fact, where he is now in 6th would be his best result of the season. At the moment, his best results were 7th in Mexico, Singapore and Hungary. He's scored points in every race since Mexico, so he's on a good run of scoring points. He's always there at the end. Could well be rewarded with his best finish of the season if things stay as they are. But with 3 laps remaining, will things stay as they are at the front of the field? Thomas 7/10 ahead of Mr. Pop, 7/10 ahead of Daniel. These top 3 pulling away from Menno, who himself looks pretty safe from Justaz, Barakagap, Law in a race of his own at the moment in the Haas in 7th position. But for him as well, this would equal his best result, which he got a few rounds ago in Japan. And he's ahead of Killer Brent on track, who is a lap down. And of course, Bullet Boy and Connor, they're 8th and 9th at the moment. In fact, Connor's car has just started to be caught up by the leaders, but he will be a ghost, so it won't have an effect. And it does look like the rain brightened ever so slightly, perhaps explaining why the wet tyres were no longer the ones to be on. And if it lightens a bit more, or stops completely, maybe that's where Daniel's fresh tyres could come into their own. But he's only got 2.5 laps to go. And it looks as though it is going to be a struggle for him to take the victory here. He's still pushing very hard there into Ascari. You could see under braking there, probably a bit too hard. He drops back from the back of Mr. Pop, who again is all over the back of Thomas, heading into Parabolica, but just can't get the exit right. Thomas seems to be so much better on the exit, in the free air, no dirty air from the downforce, no spray, and he just spreads his wings on the back of the Red Bull. Penultimate lap of the race, and he's still leading by 0.6 of a second, and he has no penalties. This is going to be a fantastic way for Thomas to get his first points of the season, which would put him just outside the top 10 in the championship. That is how much of a result that is. That is sort of the inconsistency we've seen from quite a few drivers this series, apart from probably, we've got to say, Justaz and Daniel. Everyone else has had the odd really bad race which has cost him, and even the last few races, Justaz and Daniel have started having mistakes creeping in, but they look to be back on form today. Daniel especially, Bullet Boy now fastest lap of the race, so that's an extra bonus point going his way, 1:29.1 on those fresh intermediate tyres. The conditions haven't really changed too much from the start of the race, and I wonder if he's thinking if he just stuck to the intermediates after the second safety car, where would he be at this moment in time? As I think the Racing Points has made a slight mistake in Mr. Pop. Oh, we've got a yellow flag there. Well, that Bullet Boy just lighting it up a bit coming through Curva Grande, so won't set the fastest lap this time around. Stays in 8th though for now. But he's looking pretty clear at the front of the field, is Thomas. 1 second ahead of Mr. Pop as he comes through the Parabolica for the 26th time. Next time around he'll come round there, but we're seeing the checkered flag just a few hundred yards away, so he's in the lead. Mr. Pop is second. Daniel still in third, will take that position on penalties. Mr. Pop will hang on to a 3rd place after penalties, so it'll be another podium for him, a 2nd in a row that will just about keep him in touch for a possible late challenge at this championship. Menno in 4th, he has penalties, and he's got Justaz all over the back of him at the moment. Barakagap is 6th, Law 7th, Bullet Boy 8th, Connor's AI is in 9th, and Killer Brent in 10th at the moment. But Justaz has really closed in on Menno. I don't know if he realises Menno has a penalty to be added at the end of the race, but as does Justaz, to be fair, although he would still jump Menno as things stand at the moment. But I think he wants to get this move done out on track, just in case, maybe just to stop any potential moves from Barakagap, who's really hanging on to the back of these guys as well on the final few laps. And I just wonder if Menno's intermediates are starting to become very second best. When you compare them to even when you compare them to Just As's, there doesn't look to be a lot of tread left on those rear intermediate tyres, so this could be a very tricky Ascari for the McLaren driver, but it looks as though he's just going to hang on to 4th place out on track, and it looks as though Thomas is going to hang on the older intermediate tyres. He didn't pit under the safety car when Daniel, Just As, and a few others did, and it turned out to be a race-winning decision from the Red Bull driver. He comes across the line now, 7th different winner in 7 races. Thomas with the win. Daniel getting 2nd on penalties. Another podium for Mr. Pop in 3rd, and it will be Just As who takes 4th in the end from Baraka Cap with his best result of the season. Penalties dropping Menno into 6th. A lonely run to 7th in the end for VRT Law, but does match his best finish of the season. Killer Brent will get 9th in the end because Connor's AI car, of course, will not be rewarded any points, as Bullet Boy, that mistake at the end possibly costing him a chance of getting a top 5 finish. He will end up in 8th, but still his first points of the season and the fastest lap run from him. But your race winner, as I was saying, 7th different winner in 7th races. It is Thomas, the reserve driver, taking the victory in the Red Bull. I mean, I've got to say I'd give the drive of the day for Thomas just for that decision to stay out on the tyres and for how well he controlled the race at the end. A very good job for him. So there we go. Winner there is Thomas taking the win. Another podium for Daniel. Puts him back into the lead of this championship. And Mr. Pop, a 2nd podium in the row for the Racing Point team. They'll have extended their lead in the Constructors' Championship there. And Daniel, 2nd. Mr. Pop, 3rd. Good job from the top 2 drivers. The only 2 to keep it clean who finished. Just As in 4th. Baraka Cap 5th. Menno is 6th. Law in 7th. Bullet Boy 8th with the fastest lap. Connor rage quit from the session, so Killer Brent should get 9th position, and Rocher, Knufflebeezy, Chapalele, Harry and Rotation, the retirement. A bit of a race of attrition in Monza. Low downforce in wet conditions, never the most ideal, but Thomas handled them absolutely beautifully to hold those tyres onto the end. Mr. Pop saying his tyres were on 85% at the end of that race. 85% tyre wear. Very surprised he didn't get a puncture. We saw late punctures last time around. We didn't get any here today, thankfully. That could have easily changed the results, but it is Thomas who takes a win. Only his 2nd race as a reserve this season. He's performed absolutely beautifully, but Daniel now has a 5-point lead, in the championship over Just As. I believe that's the biggest point lead Daniel's had this season over Just As. I think it was 1 point earlier when he had the lead in the championship, but those 2 looking very good at the moment. And Mr. Pop, you imagine, he's just a bit further back now. He is now 54 points off the lead of the championship with 4 races to go. Probably too little too late. Anything he'd be able to do to maybe try and get himself involved. But Racing Point have extended their lead in the Constructors' Championship. A healthy 27 points today mean they are now 69 points ahead of Racing Point. And again, very hard to... 69 points ahead of Alfa Romeo. Sorry? I mean, Racing Point are good, but they can't be 69 points ahead of themselves. The Racing Point ahead of Alfa Romeo by 69 points, and that does look as though that battle will probably be over. Will we see any more chaos next time around at the Spanish Grand Prix? Same time, same place. Make sure to check it out on the INL YouTube channel. But for myself, Luke Etheridge, thank you for watching, and goodbye.